When wealthy John came home early, he froze at his dining room door. His maid sat feeding 4 identical boys, and they all had his face. Welcome to the story room. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Section 1. The Betrayal, 1,000 Words. Let me tell you about Kevin Torres. He was a man who believed in hard work, loyalty, and doing the right thing. For 10 years, he poured his heart into a tech startup in Austin, Texas. He was the head of product development, the guy who stayed late solving problems nobody else could crack. The guy everyone relied on when things got complicated. Kevin had one idea that kept him awake at night in the best way possible. A platform that would help small businesses manage their inventory using artificial intelligence. Simple, affordable, revolutionary. He spent 2 years developing the prototype on his own time, shared it with the leadership team, got everyone excited about the possibilities. Then his wife, Sarah, got sick. Cancer. The kind that moves fast and doesn't care about your plans or your dreams or the little girl who needs her mother. Kevin took time off to be with her, to hold her hand through treatments, to pretend everything would be okay when they both knew it wouldn't. Sarah died on a Tuesday morning in March. Kevin held her hand until the very end, and then he held his 6-year-old daughter Lily while she cried herself to sleep. He took 3 weeks off work to try and figure out how to be both mother and father to a child who kept asking when mommy was coming home. When Kevin returned to work, everything felt wrong. His coworkers looked at him differently. Sympathetic, yes, but also uncomfortable. Like grief was contagious. Like sadness didn't belong in an office full of standing desks and motivational posters. 2 months after Sarah's funeral, Kevin was called into the glass conference room on the top floor. The COO sat at the head of the table, along with 5 board members Kevin had known for years. People who used to shake his hand and ask about his family. "Kevin, we need to talk about your performance," the COO said, his voice flat and rehearsed. Kevin's stomach dropped. "My performance? You've been distracted. Missing deadlines. The team has expressed concerns about your ability to lead during this difficult time." Kevin felt heat rise in his chest. "I lost my wife 2 months ago. I have a 6-year-old daughter who cries herself to sleep every night. I came back as soon as I could. We understand that. But the company is moving in a new direction. We think it's best if we part ways." Kevin stared at them. "You're firing me? Now. We're offering a severance package. 2 months' salary. We think that's fair." Fair. The word hung in the air like poison. As Kevin packed his desk, his former best friend Trevor Hayes appeared in the hallway. They'd been friends since college, started at the company the same week, stood up at each other's weddings. Trevor wore an expensive new suit and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Man, I'm really sorry about this," Trevor said, touching Kevin's shoulder. Kevin pulled away. Something in Trevor's tone felt rehearsed. "Yeah. Thanks. If you need anything, a reference or whatever, just let me know." Kevin nodded and left without another word. In the elevator, he caught his reflection in the metal doors. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. 3 weeks later, Kevin saw an announcement on the company website. Exciting new product launch. SmartStock AI, revolutionary inventory management for small business. There was a photo of Trevor holding an award, smiling wide, taking credit for Kevin's idea. His idea. His work. His 2 years of late nights and problem solving. Kevin called the COO. Left a voicemail. Called the CEO. Left another voicemail. Nobody called back. He hired a lawyer, but the lawyer just shook his head. "You didn't patent it. You developed it while employed by them. Technically, they own it." "I'm sorry." The bills started piling up. Medical debt from Sarah's treatments. Mortgage payments. Lily's school fees. Kevin's severance ran out. He applied for jobs but kept getting turned down. Word traveled fast in the tech world, and somehow the story became Kevin Torres had a breakdown after his wife died, instead of Kevin Torres got screwed by his own company. By the end of summer, the eviction notice arrived. Kevin read it 3 times, each word feeling like a punch to the gut. He had 30 days to leave the house where Sarah had lived, where Lily still expected to see her mother around every corner. Kevin packed what he could fit into his old Honda. Clothes, Lily's favorite toys, a few photos. Everything else went to storage or got left behind. He told Lily they were going on an adventure, because what else do you say to a 6-year-old when you're about to start sleeping in your car? That first night in a Walmart parking lot, Kevin watched his daughter sleep in the back seat, curled around her stuffed rabbit, and made himself a promise. This wasn't the end. This was just the part of the story where everything looked impossible. Because that's when miracles happen. When you have nothing left to lose. Living in a car with a 6-year-old teaches you things you never wanted to learn. Kevin discovered which parking lots had security guards who knocked on windows after midnight, and which ones left you alone. He learned which fast food restaurants let you refill water cups without buying anything. Which libraries had bathrooms where Lily could wash her face and brush her teeth before school. Every morning, Kevin drove Lily to school early and parked a block away so the other kids wouldn't see them getting out of the car they'd slept in. He'd smooth down her hair, check her backpack, and tell her to have a great day. She'd hug him tight and whisper, "I love you, Daddy," and every single time it broke his heart and put it back together simultaneously. During the day, while Lily was at school, Kevin applied for jobs. Sent out resumes. Made phone calls. Nothing stuck. Either he was overqualified or they'd heard he was dealing with personal issues, or they just never called back. The rejection emails piled up in his inbox like tiny defeats. People noticed. They always do. A woman loading groceries would stare too long. A security guard would lean into his radio and say something Kevin couldn't hear but could definitely imagine. He'd smile politely, start the car, and move to a different parking lot before questions turned into police. Pride was a luxury Kevin couldn't afford anymore. But shame was free and plentiful. One night, Lily asked the question Kevin had been dreading. "Daddy, when are we going home?" Kevin's throat tightened. "Soon, sweetheart. We're just camping for a little while." "I don't like camping anymore," she said quietly. "I want my bed. I want Mom." Kevin pulled her close and let her cry. He didn't cry with her, not then. He waited until she fell asleep, and then he sat in the driver's seat staring at nothing, feeling everything. On his phone, he scrolled through social media, even though it hurt. There was Trevor at a company event, holding a champagne glass, celebrating the success of SmartStock AI. Kevin's idea. Kevin's work. The comments were full of congratulations and praise. "Brilliant innovation," someone wrote. "Trevor Hayes is a genius," another said. Kevin closed the app before he threw his phone through the windshield. That's when he saw a post in a local online group. Storage unit auction, Saturday 6 p.m., cash only. Kevin almost scrolled past it. He had maybe $60 to his name. Barely enough for gas and food for the next few days. But something made him stop. One comment caught his eye. "Unit 243 is weird. Owner vanished years ago. Nobody wants to touch it." Weird meant overlooked. Overlooked meant cheap. Kevin counted his money twice. This was insane. This was reckless. This was exactly the kind of stupid decision desperate people make. He decided to go anyway. The auction took place in a warehouse that smelled like rust and broken dreams. About 15 people stood around under flickering lights, hands in pockets, looking tough and unimpressed. Most were regulars, flippers looking for furniture they could resell. A few were just curious locals hoping for treasure. "Bet it's just garbage," someone muttered when the auctioneer announced Unit 243. "Probably rats and old magazines," another agreed. When they rolled up the door, Kevin understood why nobody was excited. No furniture. No antiques. Just industrial filing cabinets, metal storage boxes, and enough dust to make everyone cough. Nothing shiny. Nothing obvious. But Kevin noticed things others didn't. The cabinets had reinforced corners. Waterproof seals. The kind of protection you use when contents matter. When someone wanted to preserve something important for a long time, the bidding stayed low. $20. $30. Nobody seemed interested. Kevin raised his hand at $50. The auctioneer looked around. 50 going once, twice, sold to the man in the back. Kevin's hands shook as he paid. He'd just spent almost all his money on something that might be worthless. Lily tugged on his jacket. "What did we buy, Daddy?" "I don't know yet, baby. But we're about to find out." Opening the cabinets took time. The locks were old and stubborn. Kevin's knuckles scraped against metal. His fingers bled a little, but he kept working. Lily sat nearby, playing with her stuffed rabbit, humming a song Sarah used to sing to her. Inside the first cabinet were files. Hundreds of files. Legal documents, property deeds, contracts with official seals and signatures. Kevin pulled one out, and his breath caught. He recognized the name immediately. Richard Brennan, the hotel mogul who died 5 years ago. His death had been all over the news. Billions of dollars. A massive empire. A mysterious car accident that killed him and left everything to his business partner. Kevin's hands trembled as he read. These weren't just random files. They were evidence. Evidence of something that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Kevin didn't celebrate. That fact alone told him this was serious. He carefully loaded the files into his car, stacking them on the back seat like they might shatter if handled wrong. Lily watched with wide eyes. "Is it treasure?" "Maybe," Kevin said quietly. "But the kind that could get us in trouble if we're not careful." That night, after Lily fell asleep in the back seat, Kevin read by the light of his phone. Every page felt heavier than the last. Property transfers. Hotel acquisitions. Partnership agreements. And underneath it all, a pattern that made Kevin's stomach turn. Richard Brennan had been changing his will. The document showed multiple drafts, each one removing his business partner Victor Kane and leaving everything to Brennan's wife, Catherine. The final will was dated 3 days before Brennan died in that convenient car accident. But according to public records, Victor Kane had inherited everything. The courts had ruled that Catherine was too emotionally unstable to manage the estate. She'd contested it, lost, and disappeared from public life. The media had painted her as a grieving widow who couldn't accept reality. Kevin read notes written in margins, in handwriting that grew shakier as the dates progressed. V. Asking too many questions about life insurance. Caught V. In my office after hours. Catherine doesn't trust him. Neither do I anymore. The last note was dated 2 days before Brennan died. If anything happens to me, this needs to be found. Catherine deserves the truth. Kevin sat back, his heart pounding. This wasn't just evidence of a contested will. This was evidence of something much worse. And somehow, this storage unit full of proof had been abandoned, forgotten, overlooked for 5 years. Until Kevin, desperate and homeless, had bought it for $50. For 3 days, Kevin sat with that knowledge. He could sell this information. Find Victor Kane's enemies, his competitors. Someone would pay a fortune for evidence that could topple a billion-dollar hotel empire. Kevin could have a house again. Real food. A future. Lily deserved that. After everything she'd lost, didn't she deserve a father who could provide? But every time Kevin convinced himself to make the call, he heard Sarah's voice in his head. Not a memory, just the echo of who she'd been. Sarah who'd volunteered at homeless shelters. Sarah who'd taught Lily that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing. Kevin found Catherine Brennan through old property records. She lived in a modest apartment in a quiet part of Austin. Not the mansion she should have inherited. Not the life she'd been promised. Just a small one-bedroom in a building that had seen better decades. Kevin parked across the street and sat there for 20 minutes, arguing with himself. A man walking a dog slowed down, staring at Kevin's car with suspicion. Kevin pretended to be on his phone until the man moved on. Finally, Kevin took the files and walked to her door. His heart hammered.
His mouth was dry.
Lily waited in the car, coloring in a notebook he'd bought her at a dollar store. Catherine Brennan opened the door and looked exactly like the photos from 5 years ago, just older. Tired. Someone who'd learned to survive disappointment. "Mrs. Brennan?" Kevin's voice came out rougher than he intended. "My name is Kevin Torres. I need to talk to you about your husband." Her expression didn't change. No surprise, no fear. Just a careful neutrality that came from years of being disappointed. "If you're a reporter, I have nothing to say." I'm not a reporter. Kevin held up the box of files. I think these belong to you. Something flickered in her eyes then.
Not hope, not yet.
Just recognition. Like she'd been waiting for this moment and had almost given up on it ever coming. She let him inside. The apartment smelled like coffee and old books. Photos of Richard Brennan lined one wall. Catherine took the box with steady hands and began reading. Kevin watched her face as she went through document after document. Her hands trembled once, then steadied. When she finally looked up, tears ran down her face. Where did you find these? Storage auction. Unit nobody wanted. And you brought them to me. It wasn't a question. Why? Kevin thought about Trevor, about betrayal, about how easy it would be to become the person who'd wronged him. Because they're yours. Because your husband wanted you to have them. Because it's the right thing to do. Catherine studied his face for a long moment. What do you want in return? Nothing, Kevin said.
And meant it.
She didn't believe him at first. Nobody does when something seems too good to be true. But Kevin just stood up, nodded once, and walked toward the door. Wait, Catherine called after him. What's your name again? Kevin Torres. But you don't owe me anything, Mrs. Brennan. I promise. Outside, Kevin took a deep breath. He had no money, no home, no plan. But for the first time since Sarah died, he felt like himself again. Sometimes the right choice doesn't fix your life, but it fixes your soul. And that matters more than people think. The case didn't explode overnight like in movies. It crept forward slowly, quietly, like truth always does when it's fighting against money and power. Weeks passed. Kevin focused on keeping Lily safe, fed, and as normal as possible. They had a routine now. Morning bathroom trips at the gas station. Breakfast from the dollar menu. School drop-off a block away. Then Kevin would spend the day in the library, applying for jobs and pretending his life wasn't falling apart. Then the letters started arriving. Catherine had Kevin's phone number. She'd call with updates.
Lawyers were involved now.
Good lawyers. The kind who worked for justice instead of just money. They'd examined the documents Kevin found and confirmed what Catherine had always known. Richard Brennan's final will was legitimate. The earlier will that gave everything to Victor Kane had been superseded. But Victor Kane didn't go down without a fight. He hired the most expensive legal team in Texas. Private investigators started asking questions around town. One even knocked on Kevin's car window one night while he and Lily were sleeping. Kevin Torres? The man asked, shining a flashlight through the glass. Kevin's heart jumped. Who's asking? Just wondering if you'd like to avoid some trouble. My client is willing to compensate you generously for any documents you might have shared with certain parties. No questions asked. Kevin stared at the man. Tell your client, I don't have anything else to say. The man smiled, but it was the kind of smile sharks have. You're living in your car, with a little girl. You sure you want to make things harder on yourself? I'm sure, Kevin said, his voice steel. Now get away from my car. The man left, but Kevin didn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about how easy it would be to take the money, how much Lily needed stability, how tired he was of being cold and hungry and scared. But every time the thought crossed his mind, he remembered Sarah, remembered the way she'd taught Lily about honesty, about doing what's right even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. In town, people started talking. At coffee shops, in grocery store lines, the whispers spread. Did you hear about that storage unit case? Some widow trying to steal a hotel empire. Probably just after money. Nobody knew Kevin's name, but they had opinions about Catherine. Strong opinions. Mean ones. Kevin heard it all and said nothing. He just kept his head down and kept moving forward. The court case took months. Depositions. Hearings. Expert witnesses examining signatures and dates and paper composition. Kevin was called to testify about how he'd found the documents. 3 different lawyers asked him the same questions in 3 different ways, trying to trip him up. Did anyone pay you to find these documents?
No.
Did Mrs. Brennan promise you compensation?
No.
So, you're telling us you just gave away potentially valuable information? For free? Kevin looked the lawyer right in the eye. I returned stolen property to its rightful owner. That's not giving something away. That's doing what's right. The lawyer smirked like Kevin was naive. But the judge wrote something down. Victor Kane sat across the courtroom in an expensive suit, perfectly calm. But Kevin could see the tension in his shoulders. The way his lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. The way his expression tightened every time a new document was presented. Catherine sat on the other side, dressed simply. No drama. No tears. Just quiet strength. She'd been fighting this battle for 5 years. She was prepared to fight for 5 more if needed. But she didn't have to. The documents Kevin found were airtight. Signatures matched. Dates aligned. Handwriting analysis confirmed Richard Brennan had written those margin notes. The timeline proved Victor Kane had been the last person to see Richard before the accident. The police reopened the investigation into Richard Brennan's death. Victor Kane's lawyer suddenly started talking about settlements instead of trials. When the final ruling came, it was almost anticlimactic. Victor Kane was ordered to return all assets to Catherine Brennan. Immediately. No appeals. No delays. $4 billion in hotels, properties, and investments shifted hands with the bang of a gavel. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Catherine. She gave a brief statement thanking the court and her legal team. She didn't mention Kevin's name. That was intentional. Kevin had asked her not to. The last thing he needed was attention. Kevin stood across the street with Lily on his shoulders, watching from a distance. A passerby nudged his friend and said, "Isn't that the guy who found the documents?" The friend shrugged. "Probably just someone who got lucky." Kevin smiled and walked away. Let them think whatever they wanted. He knew the truth. And so did the people who mattered. That night, Kevin's phone rang. Catherine's name appeared on the screen.
"We need to talk," she said.
"In person. Can you come by tomorrow?" "Of course," Kevin replied, though his stomach twisted with nervousness. "Is everything okay?" "Better than okay," Catherine said. "I owe you something. And I don't take no for an answer." The invitation came the next morning. Not demanding, not formal. Just a simple text with an address and a note. "Please come. Bring Lily." Kevin drove there slowly, not because he was afraid, but because he wanted to hold on to the feeling of possibility a little longer. The address led to a beautiful house in the hills overlooking Austin. Not a mansion, but spacious.
Warm.
The kind of place where a family could be happy. Catherine opened the door before Kevin could knock. She looked different, lighter somehow, like a weight she'd been carrying for 5 years had finally been lifted. "Kevin," she said warmly. "And you must be Lily." Lily hid behind Kevin's leg, suddenly shy. Catherine smiled and knelt down to her level. "I have cookies inside. The chocolate chip kind. Would you like some?" Lily looked up at Kevin. He nodded. She took Catherine's hand. Inside, the house smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. Lily immediately spotted a toy box in the corner and gasped. "Can I play with those?" "They're yours," Catherine said. "If you want them." Lily looked confused. Kevin did too. Catherine gestured for Kevin to sit. "I know what you did for me. You gave me back my life. My husband's legacy. Everything Victor Kane stole. You did that when you had every reason to take care of yourself first." "I just returned what was yours," Kevin said quietly.
"No."
Catherine's voice was firm. "You made a choice. You were homeless, sleeping in your car with your daughter, and you still chose integrity over money. That's not just returning something. That's character."
Kevin didn't know what to say.
Compliments felt strange after months of feeling worthless. "I did some research," Catherine continued. "I know what happened with your company. How your friend stole your idea. How you lost everything after your wife died. I know you've been applying for jobs and getting rejected." Kevin's face burned with shame. "I'm handling it. I know you are. But you don't have to anymore." Catherine handed him an envelope. "I want you to work with me." Kevin opened it carefully. Inside was a job offer. Director of Innovation for Brennan Hotels. Salary that made his eyes water. Benefits. Housing allowance. A signing bonus that would cover 6 months of expenses. I don't understand, Kevin whispered. My husband built this company on innovation. New ideas. Better systems. That's what you do, Kevin. I read about your inventory management platform. The one your old company stole. I want you to build something like that for us. But bigger. Better. And this time, you'll own it. You'll be a partner, not just an employee. Kevin felt tears building but fought them back. Catherine, there's more. She smiled gently. You and Lily can't keep sleeping in your car. There's a guest house on the property. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, completely private. It's yours for as long as you need it. Kevin's throat closed up completely. He couldn't speak. Lily appeared suddenly, holding a stuffed elephant. Daddy, can we stay here? Please. Kevin looked at his daughter. Her hopeful eyes. Her messy hair. The way she held that elephant like it was the most precious thing in the world. He thought about Sarah. About what she would want for Lily. What she would want for him. Yes, Kevin managed. Yes, we can stay. Lily squealed and ran back to the toys. Catherine handed Kevin a tissue. It's okay to cry, she said. I've done enough of it for both of us these past 5 years. Kevin wiped his eyes. Why are you doing this? Because you did the right thing when you had nothing. Most people can't pass that test. And because my husband would have wanted me to help someone like you. Someone who values integrity over everything else. 6 months later, Kevin stood in the new office Catherine had built for him. His team was small but brilliant. Together they were developing a platform that would revolutionize how hotels managed operations. Kevin owned 40% of the project. Everything was documented. Everything was legal.
Nobody could steal it this time.
Lily thrived. She had her own room, decorated with stars on the ceiling that glowed at night. She'd made friends at her new school. She laughed more, slept better. She still missed her mom. She always would, but the sharp edges of grief had softened into something she could carry. Catherine became more than an employer. She became family. She and Lily baked cookies together. She taught Kevin about running a business with integrity. She shared stories about Richard and listened to Kevin's stories about Sarah. They grieved together, healed together, built something new together. One evening, Kevin sat on the porch of the guest house, watching the sunset. Catherine joined him with 2 cups of coffee. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Giving me those documents instead of selling them? Kevin thought about it for a long moment. No, he said finally. If I'd sold them, I'd be rich. But I wouldn't be me. And Lily wouldn't have learned the most important lesson. What lesson is that? That who you are matters more than what you have. That integrity isn't something you practice when it's convenient. It's what you hold on to when you have nothing left. Catherine smiled. Your wife would be proud of you. I hope so, Kevin said quietly. I really hope so. Inside, Lily called out that dinner was ready. Kevin and Catherine stood up together and walked inside. The guest house was small, but it was home. Kevin had a job he loved, a daughter who was healing, and the peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing even when it cost you everything. Some people say integrity doesn't pay. Kevin Torres knew better. It doesn't pay in money. It pays in something far more valuable. It pays in being able to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. The end. When you have nothing left to lose, that's when your character is truly tested. Kevin chose integrity over survival, honesty over revenge, and in doing so, he found something more valuable than money. He found himself again. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that doing the right thing still matters, even when the world says otherwise.